Syria says it will cooperate with international efforts in the fight against the Islamic State group.
نحن جاهزون.
We are ready to cooperate and coordinate with regional countries and the international community in fighting terrorism following the resolutions of the Security Council. We welcome every...
Syrian foreign minister added that his country will cooperate as long as it's in coordination with the Syrian government. Signaled potential airstrikes against the Islamic State on Syrian soil. IS has seized parts of Syria and Iraq. On Sunday, fighters captured an airbase in northeast Syria. In Syria, and the U.S.'s response. Managing director of the Washington Institute, which aims to promote a better understanding of American interests in the Middle East. He's also a former senior director for Middle East affairs at the National Security Council. First of all, your reaction to the Syrian foreign minister's comments today?
Well, you know, we've had this cycle of sort of engagement with Syria in the past and then opposition to the Syrian regime. And I think that this represents the Syrian regime saying, okay, now you need to deal with us again, and you have to sort of stop saying Assad must go if you want to deal with this ISIS threat in the region. And it's important, I think, that we not sort of fall prey to this once again, because remember, ISIS in many ways has been able to thrive because of the brutality of the Syrian regime. Let's not forget that the Syrian regime is responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of its own citizens. So they're certainly not blameless in everything that's going on there.
But it's interesting, this has kind of been Assad's narrative, that there are terrorists running amok in his country, and now the United States kind of finds itself in the unenviable position of taking this one stance and now kind of having to back off and say, well, if we really want to defeat ISIS, we may have to go into Syria and attack them with airstrikes there as well.
Well, it's important to remember, though, but what are our interests here? Our interests are in regional stability. Our interests are in protecting our allies. Our interests are in making sure that this threat of terrorism doesn't come to our own shores. And the Assad regime has not been a positive force to promote any of those interests. In fact, it's been just the opposite. I mean, they have created, again, this environment that's unstable and sort of conducive to terrorism. And so that's something very important for us to keep in mind. What is it that we're trying to accomplish, and who are the right partners to accomplish it with?
As you know, affairs are not always about the decision they arrive at.
President Obama is not eager to get the United States deep involved in the Iraq war, in many ways against the Afghan war. So take a light touch to many of these problems, as we've seen over the last several years. In fact, when he talked about U.S. airstrikes in Iraq, it was very narrow, just to protect U.S. facilities and to alleviate the suffering of those Yazidis who were stranded on Mount Sinjar. That seems to be sort of expanding now. You hear the administration talking about the threat from ISIS in a more expansive way. But again, the problem is that if you want to do more, if you want to, let's say you want to accomplish more, that means you're going to have to devote more effort, more resources, and it's not clear the administration really wants to do that. And so you're hearing the sort of ends and means not really attached to one another, really connected to one another yet. And that's a decision that's before the administration.
But one of the things that I think the United States learned with Afghanistan is you can pummel, the Taliban in Afghanistan, but they can always skirt over into Pakistan. And this is what we're hearing about ISIS as well, that you can go after them in Iraq and pound them as much as you want, but if they go into Syria, now you have a whole nother situation on your hands.
And that's why it's important to know, what is your objective? If your objective is just to stop them from making further advances in Iraq, but not do much more than that, then maybe the administration has gone as far as it wants. If your objective is to, as the president said, turn the tide back against ISIS, that means that you have to go against them in Syria as well, because that's strategic depth, as we say, for ISIS. They can go over that border. They don't care about that border, but we're stopping our force at that border. At the same time, what does that mean? We've been able to work with the Peshmerga, the Kurdish militia, as well as the Iraqi forces in Iraq. In Syria, who do you work with? It's those Syrian rebels that President Obama has been so reluctant to really get involved with. And so it would imply a pretty big policy change if he's going to act in Syria as he has in Iraq.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Michael, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.